I needed people to fear me so I would never be a victim again. Wasn't even in junior high school good. The day of that rape, all the way up till about 5 o'clock, I was a good kid.
Are you living every day with purpose? Or are you just living day by day by day? Having spent over 3 decades of her life in prison, Bleu felt that she had to do herself right. I mean, she felt that she had been wronged by the system, and that everything that she did wasn't her fault. It was just stuff that happened to her, and stuff projected upon her for what happened to her. But in reality, the only person that can change your fate is you. And for Bleu, she realized that she had the power to change her own fate by just becoming a better version of herself. Bleu, thank you so much for taking the time to meet here, to connect, and share more about your story, but also your path from reformation and reconciliation to where you are right now. So just want to know about your journey and where it all started.
I had a really beautiful childhood. Even though we were poor, it was never like I knew we were poor. I did not know. But at 12 years old, something very traumatic happened to me, which shifted my thinking, which made me become a defender of the little girl inside of me. So I tucked her away and I became a persona. And in that persona, I became a gang member. I always felt like I needed people to fear me so I would never be a victim again. So that's what I lived in for several years. And one of my things about me becoming that, I felt that I was still struggling between April and the monarch I gave myself, that if I said no to anything, that would be April doing that, and then I would soon be found out. So I continued to be the monarch that I had created myself, and which worked for me by harming my community and having people see that I was not just your average girl. I became a gang member. I was the first female gang member from my neighborhood, and I lived this. My mission was to be the most toxic person from my neighborhood, be it male or female, because I needed not to be found out. That really and truly, I was just scared, hurt little girl and didn't know what to do with that energy. So from there, all roads of destruction leads to a destructive place, be it prison or the grave. That was always the thought in the neighborhood. Mines landed me in prison, not once, not twice, but 3 times. And the third time, when I did go to prison, before I made it to prison, the court sentenced me to 2 life sentences, 11 years, 4 months. So that was the start of my life, the start of the rest of my life, because I felt like I was never going to come home. I felt as though I was so deeply entrenched in the person that I had become and ignored the person that I really was, that I thought I was going to grow roots in prison and just become just another fixture in there, another dull, uninviting, harmful fixture in that place. And it took me many, many years to see that everything you see is not necessarily the truth. And so I started seeing things that gave me things to believe in. I started seeing people coming in from the streets to facilitate classes when they really didn't have to, and showing care. Excuse me. I started seeing people paroling that the judge told them that they wasn't going home either. I started seeing people caring. I started seeing community. And it took me 20 plus years to see so. I started seeing hope in other people. And I came to the realization that I was conforming to, that I had conformed into this constructs of what they say prison is built for. But through all of that, I felt unrehabilitated, even though the R is on California Department of Corrections, and that R, nothing about that prison gave me an R. But what led me to the road of rehabilitation, self-rehabilitation, was the community that I made inside of there, those ones that society deemed not good enough to walk. I want to say, we used to call it the free world.
So how's your definition of community changed now that, as a former gang member, reformed, and now still believing in that sense of community, what does that truly mean to you? And what has that definition changed to be now?
When I was in the mindset that needed to be defensive and destructive, in that group of community that I found prior to me going to prison, was we were all hurt. No one wanted to speak about it, so we showed actions as to how we were hurt. And we put them inside of us, and we all hid in plain sight. When you have that, we're just feeding off each other's harm and hurt that they have been through, but no one says it. It's just we're all angry at something else that has really nothing to do with us, right? Now I speak, I go to different places and I talk about the gang aspect of everything, right? And I look at the destructiveness that we caused in our communities. If you trace it back, at least 90% has to do with a relationship or a girl or a guy. It always traces back to that. So here we are continuing a fight from the 70s, and no one knows why this neighborhood doesn't get along with this neighborhood. But if you trace it all the way back, it was probably Billy was at the skating ring with Lori and John was her boyfriend, and here it go. And now years later, 40, 50 years later, we're still fighting that neighborhood, not knowing that was because John seen Billy rub her hair. We never know. And that's what I give people. I tell them to go back and ask the ones who are older, your OGs, how did all this start?
Right.
And the reason why it started as like that simple, is because Billy had some unresolved traumas going on in him that didn't have possibly nothing to do with Johnny. But he didn't see him as a person. He objectified him. And he took out whatever that is. Maybe he felt little at home. Maybe it wasn't a father there, or he felt like he was abandoned. Maybe it was bullying in school. Who knows? Right. But if you trace it back, it all goes back to unresolved traumas. And so gang members, how we come and become our true authentic selves, first of all, we name the trauma that we went through. We name it to address it. When we get past that, we'll start seeing that everything that I did was to protect this little person inside of me that was harmed.
So how's your definition of community changed now that, as a former gang member, reformed, and now still believing in that sense of community, what does that truly mean to you? And what has that definition changed to be now?
I'm going to say, for me, they were personal. Because when I started in the gang life, I wasn't even in junior high school good. So these were people that I went to elementary school from second grade all the way up. So I'm going to say it was personal. As time went on, it was projection. So when this neighborhood formed around us where I lived, it caused some harm to me, because those that we were supposed to go up against was people I shared my apple juice with in the third grade. So I never really bought into the depths of the confusion that we're supposed to really have with somebody. It was certain, as the kids grew up around me, I'm one of the older ones in the neighborhood, right? I'm one of the first. So the ones that grew up after me, they didn't have that. It started the separatism before that, where they red rags, we're blue rags. So when it started getting beefy, we was already in high school, but I had went to elementary and junior high with these kids. So why would I go and want to fight one of them or do something destructive to one of them? And when I rode with them, we were cool. So when the younger ones came, it was mandatory. They got on red, we got on blue, we're supposed to have this beef. Not saying that I didn't do that. I did that when it was people that I didn't know. So I was compartmentalizing my gang membership, because where I grew up at, the fruit towns and the treetops, they were my friends. You know what I'm saying? I went to elementary and junior high school together. And we had even got to the point where I recall going in the neighborhood, in one of the Blood neighborhoods, and I had on blue with blue shoestrings. And I would go over there to go visit my friends that were Bloods. And they'd be like, man, you got to stop coming over here disrespecting. I'm like, come on. But we laugh about it. But when the younger ones started coming up, the ones that were 3 or 4 years younger than me, I couldn't, because there's no way I could have went over there like that. I'm talking about on a bicycle. Now I have to be in the car and put my shoes under the steering wheel type of thing, because the mindset became something different. I'm not saying that it wasn't always. I'm gonna say in the city that I grew up in the city of Compton, it was like that, and still there are people in the neighborhoods that I still care about, I love, but it's not safe for them to come over there, nor is it safe for me to go over there. You know what I mean? At when I grew up out of the gang membership. So does that make sense what I'm saying?
As I think you had mentioned this before, how almost petty in some sense it meant, where it didn't matter about what truly that person did for you, what they did growing up to you. It mattered about the color of your shoes. More so about this idea of a broader organization you're a part of that defines you as a person, without you getting to say about what you actually mean as a person, right? You're supposed to conform to this idea. You're supposed to affirm this belief. You're supposed to be this person that maybe you aren't supposed to be, because other people around you are conforming to that idea.
So on the Little Rascals, you have Spanky, Alfalfa, Buckwheat, Stymie, that crew, with what's her name, Laura, the love of Alfalfa's life, right? That's on one side of the block, on one side of the boulevard, basically. Then on the other side of the boulevard, you have Butch and his crew. Now Butch likes Darla. That's her name. Butch likes Darla. Alfalfa likes Darla. She's Alfalfa's girl. Butch likes her, right? So when Butch comes over there, Alfalfa's really willing to fight behind this girl. And his friends are ready to defend this because of this girl. Butch and his crew, and Spanky and Alfalfa and his crew, they would beef with each other. And it all came behind this girl. So the Little Rascals is really called Our Gang. That's the name of the show. And that's how a lot of it starts. Nobody picked up a gun, but it was beef behind this girl. Or don't come over here messing with one of my friends. You know, if you come over here and mess with one of my friends, I'm going to defend my friend, because we walk home to school from school together. They live down the street from me. So you live on the other side, so you can't come over here. So when you come over here to try to do something with this person, even though we're in the second and third grade, we're defending that because he lives in my home turf. So he becomes my homeboy, and them Butch and his friends, them are homeboys. And when they come over here, they must be looking for trouble, even though it's a boy and a girl. I'm going to defend Alfalfa with everything that I have, because I don't want nobody coming over here disrupting what we have.
Right.
That's the perfect definition of what a gang is. And just now it's just bigger and worse. It becomes something way bigger than this. But with Butch and Alfalfa, it started behind this girl. Now it becomes about where you trying to sell your candy. You trying to sell your candy close to my block. No, this is where we live at.
Right.
You can't come over here and sell your candy.
Right.
Or now we making these box cars and we pushing them down the street. Oh, they're trying to beat us, and look at them. They over there looking at us crazy. Then it's something else. So now it's okay. We figured out we can have guns with this now. I don't have the best ability to fight, so now I need a gun. I need an equalizer. But it all started Butch and Alfalfa. The gang screw up. Now nobody knew it started behind Darla.
That domino effect. Right.
And people are doing it right now. So Butch's great-great-grandchild is still feuding with Alfalfa's crew, not knowing because Butch liked Darla and Alfalfa didn't want her to like him. So they became mortal enemies as children about this girl.
So then as you got older and you understand, and you went through your reform story and you understand what your actual community was, maybe it wasn't part of the gang, but understood more the beliefs that you had that maybe weren't aligned to the gang, and the gang belief. When did you start to realize that a lot of the beliefs that you had in this gang, and especially not even the beliefs that you had, but more so the friends that you had, weren't as aligned to what you were personally trying to achieve and what were you trying to do?
That's kind of like a split. It's like a split answer. I say a lot of them were working out of, well, not a lot of them. We were more working from a place of unknown. We didn't know what we were doing. We just knew that we had this thing inside of it and we didn't want nobody to know. We had to become, but in them quiet moments when we were talking about cartoons or even right now today, I can go around a few people that's from where I used to grow up, where I grew up at. And we can have a hell of a debate on who was better, like the Roadrunner or the Rabbit. You know what I'm saying? So right. Whatever that looked like, you know what I mean? And we could go back and forth with this passionate conversation. And it's nothing to do with a gang. It is like, because we still got this kid thing going on. If you look at all gang members, and this is from experience as well. You look at gang members, they all still got this kid thing going on. You know what I'm saying? Where they play the video games or they like doing stuff like get the remote control cars as adults. They doing all these different things. Why do you think that's happening? Them is child games. But I'm a grown ass man gang banging. Why are you playing these child games? Because it's that little boy inside of you that missed something. And so we got to keep that connection of some sort. Why do you think people sit and play video games all day long, but then say they're a man? Because that little boy is playing that game. Or that little girl is playing that game. Because she missed out or he missed out. So now we're getting caught up in this game. You get some people, some people that they sit up and they groan. As soon as they come home from work, they get on the video game and play the video game all day long because they lose their adult thing. But to equalize their life, they got to go play this game because some portions of it was missed inside of them. We do that. And there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not condemning any of that. To find your true, authentic, young self it's a beautiful thing. But are we healed from that? Are we playing that game and saying we're a grown man or a grown woman or a grown person? Are we doing that to lose ourselves in that? Would we still be playing that game as hard and as long as we have been if we had that trauma resolved? Because it's a connection. So a lot of people from my neighborhood, as I said, they are from my former neighborhood where I grew up at, I'll say. We can still care if I pulled out some jacks or some marbles. How many people do you think will sit up and shoot and play? Because them was lost moments.
So then as you got older and you understand and you went through your reform story and you understand what your actual community was, maybe it wasn't part of the gang, but understood more the beliefs that you had that maybe weren't aligned to the gang and the gang belief. When did you start to realize that a lot of the beliefs that you had in this gang, and especially not even the beliefs that you had, but more so the friends that you had, weren't as aligned to what you were personally trying to achieve and what were you trying to do?
They don't know. How do you fix something you don't know? Because you could speak on it as if it just happened yesterday, but you'd be saying, I'm not tripping. Then why is it in the forefront of your mind, right? I'm going to give you an example. I have a friend, and he didn't eat spaghetti, because I didn't eat spaghetti either, right? I didn't eat no pasta until, I'm going to say, 3 years before I came home, something like that, 2-3 years. And I knew why I didn't like it. I didn't like the texture. I didn't like the way it tasted. I didn't like the sauce. I didn't like that stuff, right? So we were talking one day, and I said, some kind of way spaghetti came up. And I said, man, I don't eat spaghetti. He's like, I don't either. I said, I don't like it, man, because the noodles, pasta, the sauce, all that different stuff, right? And I said, why you don't eat it? He said, I don't know. I just don't like it. And I said, it has to be a reason, right? So time went on, came back and said, you know what? I remember when I was sitting in a high chair. Now, he's 65 years old. I remember sitting in a high chair, and my mother and father was in there fighting, and I seen spaghetti slide down the wall, the trauma. So the effects of what he saw that day stopped him from eating something without knowing that That's the reason why he stopped. So that was an unresolved trauma. So how can you address something? That's just like if I'm calling you Michael. You walking down the mall, in the mall or something. Michael, I'm calling you by something, right? And you don't answer me. But when I call you by your real name, you turn around, you answer me. That's like emotions and traumas and feelings. If we cannot name them, how can we address them? And now that after I asked him this question, now he's like, dang, I never looked at it like that. I never saw that. So not, and I want to correct something. Not everyone who has unresolved traumas shed blood, but they hurt people. So that's why you have these mothers that are working 24/7 away from their children, trying to silence the noise that's inside of them. Or you have these mothers and or fathers who are cheating, trying to quiet these noises. All these different things are parts of things that are unresolved inside of them, be it insecurities in school. Now I got to take down every female that I see or every man that I see because now I've grown into myself and I look better. Or I got some money now. I'm about to just, excuse my language, shit on everybody because now I am powerful. I used to get my wedgies in when I was in school. All these different things like that. So these traumas can show up different ways, not necessarily a red or blue or black or green gang colored bandanas. It could show up in these corporations, in politics, in all these different areas of life where they have these undercover gangs going that are hurting the community as well, taking things out on a lot of these businesses. Let's looking at the Weinsteins. If you don't sleep with Weinstein, your family don't eat. If you don't play the game that the Trump and them are playing, look what happens. You get shipped somewhere else. Where did all that come from? You think it just made up? No, that's that insecurity. Now I'm the gang leader. Let's go. Who knows? Maybe he caught a couple of wedgies when he was in high school or in school. So everything, if a person could trace everything back in their life and they say, when was the first time I felt insecure? When was the first time I had felt humiliated? When was the first time I was embarrassed? When was the first time I hurt? If we trace it all the way back, it's a nexus between how we're acting now. Unless we go in and pour that toxic stuff up out of us. So when my life started changing, when somebody held a mirror up to me, because I didn't think I'm not as bad as Billy, so why am I, you know what I mean?
So then as you got older and you understand and you went through your reform story and you understand what your actual community was, maybe it wasn't part of the gang, but understood more the beliefs that you had that maybe were aligned to the gang and the gang belief. When did you start to realize that a lot of the beliefs that you had in this gang, and especially not even the beliefs that you had, but more so the friends that you had, weren't as aligned to what you were personally trying to achieve and what were you trying to do?
I remember when I was in prison in 2012, it was an outside organization that came in, and they were called Vogue, VOEG, is Victim Offender Education Group. They came in and they were going to hold a class. And at that time, I had so many disciplinary actions, meaning negative behavior, that I knew I was going back to the parole board soon. So I had to, in my mind, balance out the bad from the good, right? Make my pad better, make my file better. It's like if you're going to try to go buy a car, right? They don't care what you look like. They're going to look at your file and see what your taxes look like. That's how the board is. They don't care that you just helped the old lady across the street, whatever. They want to see what's in your file, right? So that's the way the Board of Paroles is. They want to see what your taxes look like. I mean, not taxes, excuse me, your credit score. They looking at the credit score. Over here, they looking at credit score. So I have to try to build up my credit score, meaning I have to I got a lot of negative delinquent things on my credit score. So I have to balance it out by start investing in stuff, right? Or getting things that will help it. Meaning I started going to classes that would give me a piece of paper that says, hey, she's attending this, or hey, she's attending that. So if I got 5 negatives, I need 25 goods, right? So when they brought the victim offender education group on, they did interviews. The prison that I was in was about 1,200 people, something like that. They were only taking 12 people. I said, let me just go on an interview. So when I went to interview, I spoke the way that I speak, right? Just no holds barred type of thing. When some of the other upper echelon scholar inmates, I don't use that word, but I just wanted to at this time, right? To just give you that example. Those who were always chosen for everything, I was competing with them for the 12 slots. This was the same kid that couldn't go to prison. Couldn't go to college in prison because I had too many disciplinary actions, or I was on weekend lock-ins and stuff like that. I was chosen for this class, and I was like, "What?" I couldn't believe it. So when I ended up going to the class, it's a nun, and mind you, just to let you know, I've only seen nuns really on TV or with the whole wrap and everything, the black. She wasn't dressed like that. She was just dressed regular, pants on, and this priest, they come in, and then another person they brought with them, and they would facilitate this class. And if I tell you, the class was about going all the way back to your very first thoughts, the ones you can remember, and tracing what you picked up from your mother, what traits you picked up from your mom, what traits you picked up from this person built, and what did we keep and what did we throw away. So while I was in that class, I remember I got caught with a cell phone inside prison. And one of the ways to stay in these classes, you have to not have no write-ups. And as soon as I seen that I had one, because I started seeing that's when the light started flickering inside of me. And I went and begged them. I said, please don't make me leave. And they did a vote, made me go. I had to sit in this thing called the Ring of Fire and everything, but they let me stay. In that class, it took me 36 years, because I was 48 years old when I finally said out loud to anyone besides my sister the same day it happened that I was raped. That was my very first time, 36 years after the rape happened. That night when I went to sleep when I was 12, when I woke up that next morning, never spoke it again for 36 years. So that was in that class. And when I spoke about it in that class, that's when the floodgates just started opening. Because the way that she had probed me for answers and encouraged me to go deeper and use them words, well, I don't quite understand. So what do you mean when you say she made me, it was no shallow dancing. I had to go deep. That's when my life changed. When I finally said, when I named that harm, when I was able to trace back, because the day of that rape, all the way up till about 5 o'clock, I was a good kid. By the time I woke up the next morning, I was something different. And that's when the light came on. That was in 2012. Now, prior to that, I started seeing different things, but I didn't know how to get there. Didn't know. Now I speak a lot to different people, and it's like if you have this bottle right here, and I always use this analogy. If this bottle was full of spoiled milk, right, and you needed to still use this bottle, how do you get this spoiled milk out?
Dump it out.
How do you dump it out?
You open it up.
You got to open up. You got to be strong enough. You have to be strong enough to open up and pour it out. A lot of people don't have the strength to open it, or they think they don't. So that's what I started doing. When I started pouring out the negative toxins that I had ingested, because I put them in my body, nobody else did. These negative toxins that I started putting in my body, I started pouring them out, and I started adding new hydration inside of me. And that's when it started happening. It'll still be remnants of different things, but the more you pour out, the more you can get it cleaned. But you can't just pour it out and be empty. You got to fill it up with something else, because if you leave it empty, anything can come back in there. So that's when my life changed. And now I have no issue with dumping out every chance I get. I do, because it's still, I believe we all, no matter how far we are in this journey, we still can invite healing in some kind of way.
So, what are you dumping or not dumping? What are you putting in your bottle now?
Grace, that's number one. Grace for people and for myself. Worthiness. I have this saying about we started off as cactus in this little pot. Sometimes we have to transplant because we're really supposed to be a palm tree. But with this little bitty pot that we were shoved in, we only stump. But sometimes we leave different situations. Get a little bit more sun, get the nutrients when you need. And a lot of that comes through people. It comes through knowledge. It comes through the things that we put inside of us. Because when we ingesting, whatever that look like, conversations, books, being around certain different people. Another thing I believe in is life is a fight. Life is a battle, man. And if we're looking at ourselves as we're fighters, and if you go to the gym or if you follow someone who's a fighter, a boxer, let's just say we following Javante Davis or Mike Tyson, what do they do every day? They get up and they train. They make sure that they taking in the right stuff inside of their bodies. They're making sure that they hydrate. They're making sure that they getting pointers and tips from people who have been there before. That's the way I keep it. I'm a fighter, man, every day. Dude, sometimes I get in that ring and I might get socked in the eye. And I have to go to my therapist and say, hey, I got socked in the eye. And she might say, you know what, you probably need to duck away from that situation. You know what I mean? So I thank God I got professional people. When I say professional people, I'm going to say people who are skilled and have been through some of the things that I'm going through. They can't run my race, but they can hand me some water and a piece of orange as I run my marathon. So I believe that everyone needs someone. No man is an island. It's not going to happen. I believe if a person just tuck away and say they are good because they don't go around nobody, they stay inside, they lock it in, they don't talk to nobody or nothing. No, I don't believe so. I don't believe that that person can really, they have nothing to gauge. It's themselves telling themselves, you're doing good. But outside of that, sometimes our common sense or the things that we think are correct may not be. So I think it takes community. And the community can come from anywhere. I could pick up an experience from a kid. I can exchange an experience to a pastor. I can pick up some wisdom from an unhoused person that's been unhoused on the streets that people think is a throwaway. And they could give me something, a nugget of wisdom that no one else could have gave me. So I think we learn in our every steps if we listen. As long as we got our pen and our pad ready, we can learn anywhere.
To that same chicken pot pie analogy, right? You're talking about keeping the things that you want and throwing them out. Did you ever feel like you threw things out in your life that you realized later on had more value than you thought they would, and you regret now throwing them out?
First, I'm etching things, not in my notebook, in my heart. I feel like I always tell people, you can't get it to me. I can't put it on. I have to hide it in my heart so that it come out freely. And I'm every aspect of it, how to chicken soup for the soul, or how to build a remote control car for dummies, whatever that is. I don't think it's nothing that I do not need to learn. Even if it's a religion that I do not follow, I think I could still learn something from it. To me, it's like life is like I love pot pies, right? But I don't like the peas and the carrots. So I take what I want and I throw the peas and carrots out. But I got something from everything.
So how do you kill that as your ego and begin to really understand what is truly important to you? Because there's the idea of you have to, for myself, being so busy you don't have time for family, right? To grind out, so to speak, because everyone else is grinding. Because everyone thinks they're grinding, right? You're working 16 hours, but who else is really working 16 hours? Social media thinks you work 16 hours, but you're not really. And so you feel like you're in this rat race of building yourself up. And on one hand, you're working hard, right? You're doing what you have to do. On the other hand, are you working hard for the right things?
Right.
Are you building things that you need to get built? Are those things even worth building at the same time? So how do you address that as what your ego is, and how do you address that from not taking over things in your life that truly, once you go through the motions of life, realize matter more than you thought did before?
Humility. I'm going to say my biggest regret is putting things over the relationship that I had with my mom. When I was inside, not knowing that I didn't know the depth of things. I did not count up the cost of what it really was. Like, I would be, let's say, I'm in the prison and they planning a party at 2 o'clock on a Saturday. My mom done already told me she's coming up. Visiting starts at 12. I done already told them I'll be back early. So I'm going and visiting and I'm telling my mom, I gotta go back. And my mother's gonna honor that. I'm gonna go back because they having a party, right? And I go out here on this party. I come home years later and I drive the same route my mother drove to come see me. And that's when I realized it was a 3-hour drive she came up and 3 hours back because my mother only drove the streets. So when I look at it like that, I regret the decisions that I made that put my ego and my shallow wants and desires over what I said was important to me. I have this thing about when I facilitate in these classes and I ask people, what's important to you? Name 5 people that are most important to you. And politically correct, everybody, if I ask everybody, people gonna say family. That's gonna be, whether it's mom, kids, husband, whatever, that's gonna be one of the top ones, period. Everybody, if you left out of here right now, you pull anybody over and you say, who are the top 5 most important people to you? They're gonna say somebody in their immediate family, right? I used to say that too. My mother. Nobody bet not do anything to hurt my mother's feelings or anything, or it's over. I'm doing what I do because nobody is supposed to ever hurt my mom. That's my job. Because I hurt my mother more than anybody else in the world. So how am I telling everybody don't hurt her? Don't do anything that would upset her. But in my everyday walk is doing the same thing. But being politically correct, I'm going to say my mom. But then she's driving 3 hours for me to leave her and leave from visiting to go out here and eat some dry ass burritos because I wanted to. So really and truly, my mom wasn't not important to me. My ego and my appearance was. I regret that I did that, but I'm not gonna hold it because I've been forgiven for that. I think one thing about forgiveness to yourself is you got to be accountable. And I am accountable for it. And I came home and I showed up and I presented myself as if my mom and my family are important to me, and I don't waver from that, period. So that's why I got my dog right here snoring on my lap, because he's important to me and I'm not going to waver from it. I'm not going to lock him in no room or nothing, because when this moment is over, how would he feel? Do he feel neglected that I put something over him? Why? Because he didn't show up the right way. He's snoring. So what? You know what I mean? You got some stuff you can, but you know what I'm saying? Today, my priorities and what is important is more important than anything. And keeping myself healthy in the fact that I am acknowledging I'm an addict to my own self-will. And if I don't continue to go into training mode and go into where I'm getting the training from people like friends, family, my therapist, coworkers, if I don't continue to add these nutrients to my existence, I can always fall back.
So how do you kill that as your ego and begin to really understand what is truly important to you? Because there's the idea of you have to, for myself, being so busy you don't have time for family, right? To grind out, so to speak, because everyone else is grinding. Because everyone thinks they're grinding, right? You're working 16 hours, but who else is really working 16 hours? Social media thinks you work 16 hours, but you're not really. And so you feel like you're in this rat race of building yourself up. And on one hand, you're working hard, right? You're doing what you have to do. On the other hand, are you working hard for the right things?
Right.
Are you building things that you need to get built? Are those things even worth building at the same time? So how do you address that as what your ego is, and how do you address that from not taking over things in your life that truly, once you go through the motions of life, does matter more than you thought did before?
Humility. I push myself to not greed nothing. I don't want to greed anything. So, meaning when you greedy, you're not humble. Most you feel like things are owed to you and things. Today, nothing can give me back them 27 years, 6 months, and 4 days. Time is valuable to me now. I recognize the fact that out here, people really don't have time for family. I, on the other hand, don't have time for me because I'm trying to deal with and show people that how important they are. I'm finding ways to be more intentional about my self-care because I am such a servant now. I feel like I did so many selfish things that now I want to give. And I came at one point in time, I noticed that I gave so much that I bankrupted myself emotionally and intellectually in every way. I emptied out my clips on everybody, but I had nothing for myself left. And so that's one of the things I work on. And it's really hard when you in this mindset. I'm an abolitionist. I do everything I can to be a role model. I am a facilitator. I am one. I call myself the pull-up queen. I will pull up. If you need me, I'm coming. I do all these different things, and sometimes I don't find stuff for myself. But I've been doing it. I've been starting doing it. I've never taken a vacation for pleasure. I would take to do something pleasurable. I usually would take days off and come in the house and stay home and clean up. But this year's different. I have to do something different. Now, that's where it's at. I'm even starting to date outside of where I have to travel to go and date because that's how invested I am in my life change.
You also mentioned a bit about your childlike behaviors, right? Grown men playing Fortnite, playing video games, right?
Mm-hmm.
Grown men buying RC cars and playing them outside. And they have a wife and kids. Right? Why is that? But to some people, like you said, it's their dream. Maybe it's to not be a doctor or be a politician or to be a lawyer. It's to be a unicycle rider and fulfill their dream of what they had as a child. So what do you think or not even the dream, but what do you think finding yourself in what you had valued when you were younger especially, was like? And how did you become able to understand what you wanted when you were younger to then understand now? Are you fulfilling what you set out to do when you were younger?
I'm going to ask 4 questions, right? What do you want? What are you doing to get what you want, right? Is it working for you? Do you have a plan, right? It's like making a list of your perfect partner. I want them to be all these different qualities. When we make that list out for what we want for somebody else, are we that? Have time for me? Are we haven't? So you make out a list, you want somebody to make time for you. Are you making time for yourself? So one of the parts of the curriculum that I teach is about love, right? I always tell them, make a list of the perfect person that you want. And it has all these different qualities, but are we giving that to ourselves? So when people have this idea of, I want to be president or I want to be a doctor, I want to do these different things, a lot of times that is a belief that was pushed on them to believe that that's where you're going to make it at. But really and truly, you really want to be, you love unicycles and you want to ride in marathons in the unicycle, right? But are we bold enough to do what it is that we really want to do? That's going to keep us healthy, happy, satisfied? Or are we doing it because somebody else on our top 5 said, we put on our list of what we say is important to us? If we got something on there say, to please my mom and my dad, which is to become a doctor, and really you want to be a unicycle rider. Are we bold enough or courageous enough to say, you know what, I'm going to take a stance on my life and this is really what I want to do? Or are we following fads? Or are we chasing something that's going to disappear? I really feel like stagger on because I chased money before I went to prison. Now, as long as I have money to pay my rent and my thing, squander the rest. And I need to get past that. But that was something like I'm saying, forget that. I don't want to be just tied down to nothing. No, I'm not doing that no more. I'm not going to be chasing it. It doesn't matter to me. It's not that important to me. Yes, I do have a car that's in the shop and I ain't got nothing to say. I'm doing these different things like that. But then I have to say, but what's the reality though, Blue? Because no one has ever said, hey, this is how you do. This is what you do. Hey, I know you just got out of prison, or you've been doing these things your whole life. Let me show you something. This is how you budget. I've never been taught that. You know what I'm saying? People say, nah, you know what? You need to just save a couple of dollars. But nobody showed me how to. Like, you feel me? So I think outside of me really, really pushing and needing that, I think I'm pretty good, man. I'm good. Even when I'm not good, at least I know I can name what it is that's not good about me, which makes me good because I'm ahead of it. And I know that that's exactly what I need to work on. You know what I'm saying? So instead of saying, well, my car is making a noise and I don't know what it is. No, my body's making a noise and I know exactly what it is.
So what is the idea of disciplining yourself as you get older, right? The things you need to get done, doing the things that you have to get done so that other people don't suffer or get hurt. How do your discipline come into you, and how do you still, say, fulfill that younger child of yourself, but still discipline yourself to understand that you have to do the things that adult you has to do, but still balance it all?
So I give myself freedom and grace to do them things. If it's something, because naysayers might, if I want to do the unicycle thing, what the hell is she doing? She got bills, this kind of stuff. But I think that giving myself permission to be a whole human, the calendar says one thing, but this whole human, we may have something that's inside that needs nurturing and we neglected it. You know what I mean? So that's what I do. I told you I'm 60. One of the things I watch on TV more than anything else is battle rap. I used to do that. I love seeing battle rap. I went to a Wild 'N Out show. I like Wild 'N Out. I went to a Wild 'N Out show and went up on the stage and did the Wild Sauce against one of their people and won. So if I told other people, that's what I'd be like, what you mean? So some people I'd be I don't even tell them that I did it. But if it's people that I know that are connected with their inner child, and I tell them that, they be like, oh, that's dope. But if I just came and told, let's just say I go tell your grandparents I was on Wild 'N Out and I was doing battle rap, or you come in and see that's the only thing that's on my TV. When I have company come over, I turn it off. But I really look, I'm talking about I would pay per view to watch some of the battles. Where that come from? I was a kid. I was doing that when I was 13, 14, 15 years old. I love it. That's my child thing right there. I love that. And people may not understand, especially a 60-year-old woman. And I like UFC. I used to do martial arts. Well, we did neighborhood art, martial arts, where a guy come home and he really was black belt and all that, and he used to teach us different martial arts. So I watch UFC. If it's a UFC fight on TV, I am missing whatever it is that they're saying. I'm gonna give you a perfect example. Last night, when you connected with me, I was watching UFC. I wasn't going. I wasn't doing it, and that's one of the things. So to me, them are the child things that I like doing. It's in my freedom. It's in my, when I have time for it, I do it. Like some people play their video games. There's nothing wrong with playing video games. It's a connection to your child. Now, I become obsessed in these things where I'm supposed to have a responsibility, but I'm not really having a responsibility, but I'm carving out time to do this thing. And I already knew Saturday night I'm watching the fights, so I can't chill. If I already knew this, then I think I'm being responsible and I'm still fulfilling the kid inside of me.
So what is the idea of disciplining yourself as you get older, right? Doing the things you need to get done, doing the things that you have to get done so that other people don't suffer or get hurt. What does the idea of discipline come into you, and how do you still, say, fulfill that younger child of yourself, but still discipline yourself to understand that you have to do the things that adult you has to do, but still balance it all?
Right. I have an accountability partner. Technical stuff sucks to me. I I got a coworker. His name is Trinidad. I'll be like, Trini, please, is it something I'm supposed to be doing? He's my me and him are the co-managers. Because if I got an email 4 days ago, it's just too bad him snoring loud. If I had an email that's 4 days ago and I don't see, or last week and he mentioned something, I say, please send it to me again so it could be on top. So I may slip my responsibility at that time, but I reach out and get an accountability partner and tell them without the bush crap. I don't say, I say, I messed up on that. Can you send it to me? So I think everything, you give yourself grace, but you have to be accountable. So I slip all the time, man. I really do. Mannerism at times, but I've been doing this since I was 12 years old. How do you just turn it off? So my passion can be perceived to some people as aggression, but then when I feel like it's happening like that, I always reach out to somebody who was in that conversation and say, how did I sound? And if they say, you could have been a little different. So let's say I have a conversation, it's me, you, and somebody else, and I'm telling you exactly how I felt, right? When you leave, I'm going to ask my partner, how did I sound? Well, you know what? You could have been doing something different. Guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to call you and be like, my bad if I sounded like that. I'm not trying to make no excuses. I'm working on that, all right? So if I do anything or say anything that offends you, please give me that. Tell me that right then. I'm open to constructive criticism. Because as I said before, sometimes my common sense don't make sense at all. But I'm learning how to do this adult thing out here. Inside, in order for a person who was sentenced with a life sentence, you have to present yourself as perfect at the Board of Prison Terms. You have to present yourself as, first of all, you have to tear yourself completely down in front of them and tell them how much you are not good enough for the streets. You was a piece of stuff on the bottom of somebody's shoe. You have to acknowledge that in the way that it's accepting for them. Then you have to tell them, how is it that you're not that anymore? And the tools that you got from this wonderful prison in order for you to be suitable to go home. So imagine for at least, because I did 27 and a half years, imagine for 20 years, that's all I was told. And every time I go, they said, you're not good enough, get out of here. I see you in 5. You're not good enough, get out of here. See you in 3. Oh, you're not good enough. What do you mean you was a good person out there? No, you weren't. So you have to go out there and say, look, I wasn't shit. The whole world was unsafe with me around. You have to tell them all these degrading things about yourself. Not that you didn't acknowledge them, because that's first and foremost, as I say, in order for a person to grow, you have to acknowledge things. But to acknowledge them to the fact where you are demeaning yourself and you're telling everybody that's sitting in front of you that are in a judgment mode that, no, I was never shit. I am unworthy, my sir. I was always unworthy to be out here on the streets. But thanks to this wonderful prison, I learned to da 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 da. And now I know, sir, that when I go home, I'm going to sing and tap dance for everybody to make sure that I'm okay, that you guys see that you made a better decision. So that's what you got to go do. So that psychological torment that goes on in your head, it's crazy. So when I'm out here, I am not giving myself grace, first and foremost, because perfection can be met because I was able to get out. But you know how stressful it is to feel like you have to be perfect in everything. And then when you say something in a tone that you're used to talking in, and that makes sense, defined in order for you to feel defended, to just stop that at a halt, it's still remnants, but it's not in a harmful way. Now I don't talk in aggression. I talk passionately because I'm believing the stuff that I say before. Let me say now, before I didn't believe in some of that shit that I was saying. I was just saying it because it was what had to be done. So with the board, I told them everything that the things that I worked on, but I made it so wrapped up in such a pretty ass package in words that I don't say, but my body was still meaning the exact same thing. Does it make sense? It's like you don't cuss in front of your mama, right? But when you get on the streets, you cuss. right? I cuss, but I had to go up in there and say words that I don't like, going around that and make a prettier picture. When I go out here, when I go back to the prison yard and I'm cussing, I'm teaching people how to get prepared for board, they're going home because it's the authentic me, but they don't want that. You have to be what they say you are, like that, the iRobot type thing. So, I don't know.
The idea of being artificial and being like not a sense of yourself.
So, I work on that all the time because now, since I've been home, I've been free to be me. But everybody don't see that. My passion is, I have to question it sometimes with people to make sure, because my number one thing is never to harm. I don't want to harm anybody. Even though I didn't mean to hurt somebody, everybody's feelings are valid. Feelings aren't fact, but they're valid. So that's the way I rock. So I just try to pay attention, and I'm very intentional about making sure that I didn't do certain things.
Thank you so much, Blue. I feel like I learned a lot about myself through the process, but also about things that I need to work on myself to become the best version I want to be, and to really be the 80-year-old version of myself that I am proud of. Thank you again. Anything that you'd want to say before?
Do I believe I'm making the 80-year-old person that I am or could be, that I have been or are destined to be? Am I making them happy in my decision today? I'm going to say the 8-year-old, mischievous, having fun, but very sweet. Yes. My mom did an interview one time, and my mother said, as a young child, I was always charming. So I'm going to say yes. The 80-year-old, I believe that she's going to be very proud of what transpired between 8 and 80. Even though hiccups, I had to fall on my sword a few times, and I did give up a big chunk of my life to feelings of defense. But even during them times, when from then and there, I always tell people I was the crash test dummy. Let me help you, because I've driven in this car so many times. I know what's going to. So I'm very proud of the fact that I still reach back out. Before I left from prison, I helped at least 25 people get out before me by doing one-on-ones and doing mock board hearings with them, and just doing some unorthodox things that was not happening before I came on. And since I've been home, I've helped way more than that. Matter of fact, 3 girls that I've been working with, they all just got and found suitable with the board. That means board for they good enough to come home. I'm very proud. One thing that I'm really, really proud of, I'm a writer. I've always been a writer that was really invested time in my writing because it came so simple and easy. I felt like God passed me over with talent, and I took a lot of my stuff and I just packed it away. But right now I'm doing a play called Found Suitable. It's a one-woman play, and we're putting it back on in September. So I'm very proud of that. It's just me on stage. You know, it's just me and my producer, but me just telling my truth and hoping that it'll change people. Let them see, because I exposed myself completely my whole life from when I was 12 all the way up. Well, before that, I'm going to say I talk about my life from probably about the age of 7, 8. Sorry it took us such a while to connect, but I appreciate your persistence and you willing to pull up on my turf, because right now